Hi, everybody. It's Lou Zaccarella. On December 3rd, 2025, Durham, Canada was named the Intelligent Community of the Year. They are the first intelligent community from Canada to be named since 2021. That year, 2021, Winnipeg in Manitoba was named Intelligent Community of the Year. Kind of a surprise choice that year. We did a podcast back then with Winnipeg, which I thought you might want to hear since they were the last Intelligent Community of the Year in Canada before Durham. And they were doing their interview during the height of COVID, which was a completely different time. So it's worth listening to. We are going to have a lot of content, a lot of people to hear from regarding Durham, including the site auditor who made the trip there and audited that city, and much, much more. But we thought you might enjoy this blast from the past. So let's go to kind of chilly Winnipeg, but beautiful Winnipeg and Intelligent Community of the Year 2021 Winnipeg, and hear their interview.
I'm Eleanor Coop-Sammy. I'm the Corporate Creative Communications Manager here. We'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the land in which we're all standing right now. So Economic Development Winnipeg acknowledges that we're located on Treaty 1 territory, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. So today for our community leaders conversation, we are joined by EDW's President and CEO, Dana Spiring, and the Mayor of the City of Winnipeg, Brian Bowman, for our community conversation. Now, you met them yesterday. I'll do a short introduction again about for Dana and the Mayor, but also I'll give you a quick introduction to the other community leaders that are joining us here live. Actually, they're right here next to me. So that's a great treat for us. Dana Spiring is EDW's president and CEO, who has worked to build relationships across industries, educational institutions, the business community, and governments to help position Winnipeg as a great place to visit, invest, build a business, and study. Brian Bowman, our mayor, is the first mayor of Métis descent in our city's history and has been a strong city builder, overseeing the economic and population growth of our city with projects and initiatives that are improving efficiencies, reducing red tape for business, advancing infrastructure projects, and improving transparency at the municipal level for citizens. Abhi Khan is also with us today. He's known for his illustrious 9-year career in the Canadian Football League, but beyond that, he has proven his love and dedication to our city as an ambitious entrepreneur, owning 3 separate and successful businesses, including Shawarma Khan, Green Carrot Juice Company, and most recently, goodlocal.ca, which is an online marketplace featuring local products and vendors, easily becoming yet another quintessential example of Winnipeg and a Winnipeg experience for gift giving, holidays, and of course, showing some local love. Barb Gamey is also with us. She's a co-founder of Payworks, one of Canada's largest national providers of payroll, human resource, time and absence management solutions, located here in Winnipeg. However, there are 10 regional offices with more than 300 employees across Canada as well. Barb is a dedicated community leader, sitting on several boards, including the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Business Council of Manitoba, the TELUS Manitoba Community Board, and has served as United Way's Winnipeg's 2018 campaign chair. Barb is also the Chancellor of the University of Winnipeg, and she is an ongoing supporter of numerous other community and charitable events. So we understand one of the things that you wanted us to discuss was how the pandemic forced us to do things in new ways. So I'm hoping we can start with the Mayor, Brian Bowman, and how the pandemic forced the city to do things in different ways.
Well, good morning, and can everybody hear me? I was having some issues with my mic earlier.
Yeah,
great. Okay. Well, it's nice to join everybody remotely, and good to see some of the community leaders. You're in for a real treat with hearing from everybody this morning. But yeah, I mean, in terms of doing things differently, essentially governments, including municipal governments, have always been very service-minded, and so that didn't change. But we had to pivot in many ways in which we provide those services. And so a couple things I would highlight is just we had to move to more of a remote government. And so in real time, we had to allow for our business of government to continue. So we fortunately had bylaws that allowed us to pivot very quickly to continue with their council meetings, as well as to allow for the first time ever members of the public that appear in delegation to appear remotely. This is something that I hope we'll be able to continue because it does open up the accessibility of government. We're unlike provincial or federal governments, members of the public can speak directly to elected officials, live stream for everybody to see their comments, in real time. And this is something that I really value and has really helped. That's something we had to do. We also had to increase our communications directly with the public. Fortunately, we had made investments in a modern communications press center. We're still making improvements, but we were using that at the height of the previous waves of the pandemic, almost daily briefings with our emergency operations personnel directly to our public, but also social media as well as other communications tools. That's been something that we had to really enhance, and I think has been good for just, again, strengthening the trust that people needed to have and continue to need to have in institutions like municipal government. The other stuff that we had to look at was what is essential and what is not essential. And so that's something, while we had to protect our staff and through a lot of uncertainty at the time, we had to figure out how we continue those critical services. Transit is one that I will point out. We were running largely empty buses for much of the pandemic because we needed, when we assessed it, we needed to get our hospital care workers to and from the hospitals, grocery clerks, those that are involved in food processing and handling, all of the things that we needed that are essential. A lot of that is serviced by public transit to get our valued employees to and from their workplaces. And so in the midst of that, we had to pivot and really focus on piloting innovation in transit, like on request transit. And so we launched that during the pandemic, realizing that we could do things more efficiently. And I think that will be a legacy that will go on after the pandemic. Some other things I'll just briefly touch on. We had to show a lot more flexibility in service delivery, parking, adding loading zones for curbside pickup in downtown Winnipeg, relaxed parking enforcement in residential areas to allow employees to work from home, free parking in downtown. These were things that we had to pivot on, patios, enhanced digital permitting, launching an alternate video inspections, and also launching online commercial building and trade permit inspections requests. This is a short sample of some of the innovations that we've had to do. And then lastly was just some general support for business through direct grants that we provided, more modest than other levels of government, but something that could provide some modest assistance. And then the last thing I'll highlight is we deferred when people had to pay their taxes, something that governments historically don't like to do. We usually don't say, pay us when you can or later next year. We did that a couple years running. It affects our cash flow, but it was a small thing to be able to just provide some additional cash flow assistance to businesses and to residents. So those are some of the things that we had to do during the pandemic.
Mayor Bowman, you brought up the efforts that the city did to help businesses, and I just want to bring in that business perspective now with Abhi Khan. So, you have some experience about starting new things during the pandemic, including your new business, which is goodlocal.ca. Can you speak to some of that?
Yeah, so Good Local started a month into the pandemic. Everyone wanted to support local. It was a national thing, it's international. Everyone wanted to support local, but businesses were closed, markets were closed, events were canceled. Small businesses had a ton of products sitting there. And even myself and everyone here that wants to support local, you couldn't go anywhere and buy anything local. So what about all these businesses that are getting left to the wayside, that don't have storefronts, that don't have online shopping platforms, that don't have delivery services? So we came up with the idea of what if we made an online platform like Amazon, but only local and only supported local businesses, where we would take care of everything for the vendor. They would only have to make the product. We started a warehouse, we moved to another warehouse, we moved to another we moved 3 times during the pandemic with support from EDW and the province and government. And it's amazing what you can do when you have private sector come together with government, and that's what happened. And within the course of, I think, 3 weeks, we had a $500,000 grant come out from the province to support us From there, we scaled immensely. We moved to a warehouse. We bought a fleet of delivery vans. We got over 500 vendors on this platform, over 10,000 products. And the amazing thing is that we have given back almost $1 million directly to the hands of local businesses, not even within a year. We launched, really picked it up in November once we got the funding. So it's amazing what we can do during the pandemic. We started this business, and I thought I was going to run it out of the back of my restaurants with 20 deliveries. I was like, oh, we'll get 20 vendors, it'll be fine. I'll just support these little businesses that I know. And the support and the outreach was amazing, and we've scaled. And not only that, really exciting is we said, well, businesses also need support in delivery. So we started Good Local Express. Well, restaurants also need support in delivery, but they don't want to pay a commission, so we're launching Good Local Restaurants. And we have goodlocal.ca. So we've created an ecosystem during a pandemic where lots of these businesses are actually doing more sales during the pandemic when they were pre-pandemic, and it's all through innovation and collaboration and coming together and thinking outside the box. So it's been an amazing journey for myself and the 500 vendors.
It's incredible. So, but to your other businesses as well, like a lot of businesses had to go to takeout, as you mentioned. You know, is there anything that you started during the pandemic, a new way of doing things that you're going to continue?
Yeah, so I also own, as you said, a Middle Eastern restaurant called Shawarma Khan and a juice bar called Green Carrot Juice Company. So I have 7 restaurants. So we got hit hard right on the chin during the pandemic. As things started to reopen and as I tried to keep a couple restaurants open, we looked at, and some restaurants did this and some businesses completely pivoted. We went into, some business went to grocery boxes and delivery services, and we said, let's stay with our core competence. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean we have to jump on that bandwagon too. So we looked at our internal operations and said, is there ways we can offer better value to the customers? Because customers are ordering online like crazy. So we said, what if we increased our offering to them online and then actually gave them a coupon to bring them into the store for pickup at a reduced rate of what we're paying our third-party providers? So we got together as a team and we got thinking really creative, awesome ways, new recipes, new menu items. How can we offer better value to the customer? Because it was shifting to an online world, just like Good Local. I saw that early. I said we have to be prepared for that. So we didn't go completely pivot to a different platform like a lot of businesses did. We just did what we did and we did it better. And coming out of the pandemic, we have better food costs. We have better labor costs. We have, I think, 5 out of the 7 stores have passed pre-pandemic sales numbers already. That's 5 out of the 7, just because of what we did during the pandemic. So we're taking all those things through post-pandemic, and I expect way more success once we're out of this thing. So all in all, it's been a great journey, just through innovation, adaptation. I love to say that innovation comes through iteration. You got to try something, you got to try it again. You got to keep trying different things, and then you hit it. And with support of Winnipeg here, we've hit it.
Amazing. Barb, I wonder if we could go to you now, because you're a very active business owner as well, but you're also on several boards as well in the city. So can you speak to how your business or even the organizations you're involved with started to try new things during the pandemic and where those efforts are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a technology platform that supports about 25,000 customers across Canada. And for the last number of years, we have wanted to be able, from a disaster recovery and business continuity perspective, to work remotely, have our employees be able to engage with our application, our customers remotely. There was always reasons why we couldn't do it as quickly or as efficiently as we wanted to. Well, the pandemic was the reason. In 2 weeks, we stood up about 350 employees remotely and didn't miss a beat. So our entire operation went virtual in about 2 weeks. Our customer satisfaction ratings have held pre-pandemic levels. Our employee engagement scores have held pre-pandemic levels. So we're very proud of the fact that it was maybe the impetus to do it, but in fact it was something we needed to do. The other one that I wanted to mention, Eleanor, is the University of Winnipeg. So universities were in flight with courses in March, which is when the pandemic kind of got real here in Winnipeg. And they had research projects underway, funding underway, students in place, but they had to go online in the blink of an eye. Universities are not typically noted to be that flexible in terms of their ability to move, nor do they have a state-of-the-art technology as a backbone to their institutions. But they did a fantastic job of online learning and delivering online learning. First, there were the technology challenges that for sure they had to address, but I think one of the things that students would say is that they really did turn their attention very quickly to the quality of the education, the product that was being delivered to students, for professors and staff and students. And that journey has continued for 18 months. Today, we are back in class for students that are vaccinated, but we have, about 30% of the students that are still online learning, and international students that are having challenges getting back to class, and they're still online learning. So, I think the flexibility that even a university demonstrated during the pandemic was remarkable.
Dana, I'll ask you the same question as far as economic development is concerned. There had to be obviously a pivot in that area as well. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I think it's twofold, Eleanor. So there was a pivot in what we did in this office. So rather than go out and meet with clients and do business retention and expansion interviews, we had to figure out what our companies needed in Winnipeg, right? We had to show them what products, services, government support grants were available to them and how they were to access that. So our business development team became experts in those programs. They each took a program, they learned the intricacies of it. So if we had any company in Winnipeg that had questions on how to get that, how to access it, we had an expert on staff that could, hold their hand and walk them through it. So that was how we supported at a corporate level. We also looked at the companies in our city who were doing incredible things during the pandemic. We've talked before, Robert, about Price Industries. They are an air purification and HVAC company. They got their heads together and said, how do we start purifying air in places that we can't go and transform the whole HVAC system? They created an air purifier that's the size of a dishwasher that you could plug into classrooms, you could plug into theaters, and it's at a very reasonable cost. So we started to work with them to help them promote that, to help people understand what existed. Precision ADM is another one that we talk about. It's a very advanced manufacturing company, and they pivoted to say, hey, there's going to be an increased need for PPE. They made reusable masks, reusable N95 masks, first in its kind around the world, and we helped them with the opportunities to correspond with government to make sure that people knew what they were able to build and the quality they were building. They're now looking at biodegradable gowns and masks for hospital workers. They're looking at rubber gloves to take that supply off China and bring it right here in Canada. So there was so much that was going on. We had to move really quickly. We had to do that virtually. But we were inspired by what we saw in our community.
And that was a really excellent discussion of the things that are going to stick. It's what I've begun talking to people about, because we obviously always look at the downside of things first like this, but boy, there's a lot of upside that once we get past the suffering, we'll get to benefit from. Yeah, Mayor Bowman, I appreciate, first of all, your dedication to getting out there and raising that flag. What I really wanted to ask you was, for the benefit of our listeners and our viewers on here, to give us a bit more of a flavor of your city. So Winnipeg to me stands out because it has an extremely diverse economy and also an extremely diverse economic profile of its citizens, right? It's definitely not a one size fits all kind of place. So what if you could just, give us a bit of a picture of that, of the sectors that make up your economy and of that wide demographic spread that makes up your people?
So I've often talked with the Prime Minister about how I believe Winnipeg is a quintessential Canadian city. It's where north connects with the south. It's where east meets west. It's where the Great Canadian Shield meets the Canadian prairies, the breadbasket of the world. And so, in many ways, we're while I alluded yesterday how we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the prairies here, we're also kind of where Canadians, and I like to think increasingly the world intersects. And so that multiculturalism, the diversity that we see that reflected in our industries as well. And so unlike other regions of Canada or even North America, where they may have a predominant industry that is kind of pushing their economy, we really do have one of the most diversified and connected economies, both locally and of course, nationally and globally, than anywhere in the country. And so when Dana talks about Price Industries, for example, the connectivity within Winnipeg is really helpful. So I'm at a meeting, just to give you one example. I'm in a meeting with the big city mayors across Canada and the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, during the pandemic, and she's talking about air quality. I'm like, oh, okay, well, one call to Price Industries to connect Price with the Deputy Prime Minister and her staff. That happens on a daily basis within Winnipeg. And so when Abhi has an idea, It doesn't surprise me with kind of the initiative that he has the network to be able to just start making a few calls, and all of a sudden you've got something that's a positive movement in the community. That's something that we see all the time, and pre-pandemic, and we're going to see that coming out of the pandemic. But I just say it's really the quintessential Canadian city.
It's also a city where everybody works for Dana in one way or another, because I've never seen such a bunch of economic developers in my life. So congratulations, Dana.
We'll be back with more of the Intelligent Community in a moment. The Intelligent Community is the official podcast of the Intelligent Community Forum. For cities, counties, and regions around the world, ICF charts new paths to economic and community development using digital technology and a holistic approach to growth. We do it through a program called the Community Accelerator. Our work is based on the experience of more than 200 communities in an active network and 25 years of consulting and research into their best practices. To learn more about how your community can benefit or to become a member of our network, visit www.intelligentcommunity.org and look for us on X, Instagram, and LinkedIn @New Communities, and watch for Lou's weekly vlogs. This podcast is funded by the members of the forum and the ICF Institutes in Ohio and Taiwan. If you like this podcast and are hearing it for the first time, a new podcast drops every 2 weeks. To listen to previously released episodes, visit intelligentcommunity.org/podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. And now back to the Intelligent Community podcast.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that diversity, because that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Many
Yeah.
successful communities, economically successful communities, are really good at emphasizing that one dominant, thing. So let's call it tech in the valley out in California, right? And yet there's this whole other story that never gets touched and never talked about and never really becomes part of the life of the community. And I think Winnipeg's a little different in that way, because you've made very strong efforts to reach out to people who are peoples of your, who are your citizens who've been excluded for so long. Could you talk just a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, making sure that, coming out of the pandemic, the objective is that we come out of the pandemic stronger than we were before. And Abby's example is a great example of just his own businesses. And we see that, scale throughout Winnipeg. But, the flag raising that we're doing today, we're raising 3 flags, Dakota First Nation, the Métis Nation, as well as Treaty 1. For the first time ever. So we got horses that are about to come up on City Hall. I won't be riding one today, but that is those symbolic events backed up with substantive engagement, like real engagement with other levels of government, not just federal and provincial, but other First Nations and Métis governments and Inuit governments, is incredibly important. And so, I mentioned Abby and the CFL. CFL, our Canadian Football League, has done a great job of celebrating diversity, not as a marketing, but actually legitimately seeing it as a competitive advantage. So the diversity that we have in Winnipeg, the largest Indigenous community of any Canadian city, it has to be an advantage for us. It has to be an opportunity. And it hasn't always been viewed that way. Historically, if you talk to many non-Indigenous, even Indigenous peoples about the large Indigenous reality that we have here in Winnipeg, not everybody would see that as a positive thing. And so we have been celebrating through art, through culture, through learning, through our elders and knowledge keepers. And that journey of reconciliation is going to continue. We've got a lot of work to do, but we have emerged, leveraging the human rights work and the human rights assets like the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. We're challenging ourselves in ways that other communities haven't, and being increasingly recognized for trying to do more than just talk about celebrating diversity, but actually trying to find ways to leverage it as a competitive advantage. And it's starting to take shape.
I was speaking with some of your folks yesterday, and I posited that the very strong strain of interest in diversity, gender diversity across newcomers and non-newcomers and with your Indigenous people, has inside it an interesting driver, which is your industries are growing. Your industries are growing and you need qualified people. And, shortage of labor is actually a thing, particularly as we get more qualified jobs. So I heard a lot of undercurrents of, well, we've got all these people here who have been underutilized and left out. What can we do to turn them into a very valuable talent pool?
Well, the universities, we were just talking about University of Winnipeg. We also have Red River College, University of Manitoba, just these St. Boniface University. Part of, I'll use the example of our Indigenous community. So my previous career was in business law, but I specialized in privacy and technology law. And I saw how technology literate, especially Northern Canadians who are disproportionately Indigenous, are. That's something that's, we're talking some of the best coders, multiple languages, in terms of coding languages. So the colleges and universities working often with our provincial government and industry are doing a better job of kind of connecting the dots and making sure that people are seeing those opportunities of where they can advance their careers right here and have that quality of life that they aspire to. And so we're getting better at that. Part of the challenge is just letting people know about the opportunities that you have right here in Winnipeg. I mean, I'm a case study where I've lived and worked elsewhere, but I returned home, seeing the opportunity that was here to build my legal career before I jumped into politics.
Well, one question for the people who have never heard the word before, you referred to yourself as a Métis. What does that mean?
Well, we're one of 3 recognized Aboriginal groups in Canada. We have First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. And Métis is a nation within Canada. And so, the case study or the example is Louis Riel, the founder of Manitoba, one of the founders of our country in helping establish Manitoba. And so the historical birthplace of the Métis is here in the Red River Valley. It was really the meeting of Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples that had offspring that then created their own culture, language, economy. That's where the nation reference comes in. And so it's this is a group of entrepreneurial folks, probably some of the most entrepreneurial people that you will meet in Canada are Métis. It is, and it's a challenge because they look all different. They look different. People are, it's a pretty diverse group, but it's one that is, for far too long didn't celebrate being Métis. I mean, speaking for myself, when I was a kid, we were discouraged from acknowledging our Indigenous roots, and that's changed, and it's slowly changing for a lot of Manitobans who are Métis, and so that discovery of who the Métis are is something that even Métis themselves are on that journey as well.
Well, listen, thank you for explaining that. Yes, it's a proud heritage, and congratulations on being able to celebrate it.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Have a great day, everybody. Nice to see you again.
You too.
Take care.
Robert, while you were asking some questions to the mayor, Barb Gamey, one of our panelists, was actually interested in responding to one of your questions about how do you engage diverse communities. Are you right with her speaking to that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of the significant initiatives underway at the university and many post-secondaries in Winnipeg is the engagement of underrepresented students at a very early age. We've recognized that to go to a student in grade 12 and talk about preparedness for post-secondary is in all likelihood too late. Paths have been determined, courses have been set, and so there's a significant amount of work that's happening at the junior high level or grades 6, 7, and 8 so that we can have conversations about the benefit of post-secondary, and I think that's critical in the development of graduates later on in underrepresented communities. And the other piece that Brian referenced, and I think it's important to highlight, is many times a student is not aware of what the work opportunities or the career opportunities are in their own community, and they think that maybe a career is more glamorous in another city. So experiential learning and work integrated learning opportunities are very much in the forefront of the universities, the government's economic development's lens right now as we talk about making sure that students understand the price industry opportunity, opportunities at Avi's restaurants and other businesses. So I think that those things in the years to come will serve us very well.
It's something at ICF that we're passionate about. It's I'll give you an example. I used to live in New York City in the Upper West Side, and it wasn't until I moved out that I realized I was 5 blocks from Columbia University because it was so hidden. It was so geographically, physically hidden. And that's just so typical. Even in your own town, you have no idea what's going on. When we take leaders out on tours of their own cities, half the time they walk away shaking their heads going, I didn't know we did that. I didn't know we did that. Yeah, it's a big deal. Now, I don't know if anybody here is in a position, well, actually, somebody is in a position to talk about that. We just talked about this. That school to work transition, that, we call it the ladder of opportunity. And interestingly enough, I came up with that term while visiting Winnipeg in 2018 when you were in the top 7 intelligent communities, where you have, you bring together government, educators, government at different levels, and business, employers, which is really hard, right? Because they don't start out speaking the same language. And you do that awareness creation, and you also do this creating a genuine path from one level of education to another. There in Winnipeg, you've got a great example, Sisler High School, that's done amazing pioneering work. It's just one example, but it's a great one. Could you just share some of your favorite examples, if you will, of these sort of education into ultimately local employment?
Well, maybe I'll start with that, and then we can all jump in. I mean, Robert, you'll know that Sisler High School, I often say that if you want one place to go feel so proud about being a Manitoban, you walk into Sisler High School and you leave inspired. So
heck, I felt proud of being a Manitoban.
But in that example, we've got programs where students can learn video gaming, where students can learn cybersecurity. And one of the great examples in Winnipeg, Bell MTS, one of our big telecommunications companies, donates their used laptops to Sisler. You'll remember that Sisler is the largest public high school in the province, and there are a lot of people that just don't have access to computers and tablets and all the things that many of us take for granted. So we donate, our community donates those computers and different things to Sisler, and then the students are able to sign them out and go use them. And one of the classes that they have is on computer networking. And once they're able to build a network, start to finish, they get to go learn how to hack, and they learn how to go break it. And that opportunity has led them to do cybersecurity courses, a course with the Pentagon on security, and a course that was dedicated to military schools in the States has been won by a public school out of Winnipeg, which is one of those great stories. So also at Sisler, we have relationships with other companies. So Ubisoft, the gaming company, it's important that people in Winnipeg understand that they can go make video games here, that they can go do animation on movies here, that they can, change the way we breathe air in operating rooms and different places here. So all of those things, I think, are in a bunch of areas of our community, and our job at economic development is to try to bring those together. 3 years ago, we developed a talent hub right here in our office, because one of the things we heard from CEOs is the biggest barrier they have to growth in our city is having the right talent and making sure that we have a pipeline for that talent. And we know that the talent that exists in Winnipeg, it's just how do you funnel it and how do we get them to those communities? And I think part of that plays to our connectivity as a community, and part of our connectivity as a business community. And you've heard me say that's our secret sauce. Barb, maybe you want to jump in on that too, on the connectivity piece and just how that makes Winnipeg work better.
Oh, absolutely. I always say it's 1 degree of separation. I may not know the person, but I know I can call Dana, and Dana will get me an introduction. A great example, and Eleanor, you mentioned it, we've got 10 offices across the country, and I had a senior leader in Vancouver running a fundraising for a very worthwhile initiative in his community, and really was struggling to make the calls to the people that he needed to connect with so that he could organize this really worthwhile initiative. Well, in Winnipeg, again, 1 degree of separation. I know how to get into someone's office and someone knows how to get a hold of me. And I think it's that, Mayor Bowman referenced our isolation here on the prairies. We're in the middle of, nowhere in a nice way, but we rely on one another and we rely on the interconnectedness of our community, and we leverage that, I think, in many, many ways that, some might view as we're in competition with one another, but I believe that we're also the biggest cheerleaders of one another's success. I applaud everything that Abby does, and he applauds what I do, and we're just each other's cheerleaders, which I think is also pretty unique in terms of our community.
We have a phrase at ICF that the middle of nowhere is no more, and I think you're a great illustration of that.
Yep.
Abby, I think you wanted to jump in there too about the connectivity.
Yeah, so and the student part of it, I'll touch on that quickly. My restaurants and my success wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for students and the education programs we have here. I mean, solely based on the talent we get from our culinary programs, the university, the co-op programs. I have our immigration policy here in this province with the provincial nominee program is, we bring in foreign students and they have an opportunity to stay if they work. I currently have probably 30% of my staff out of 80 of us now, we were over 100 pre-pandemic, are provincial nominee programs of kids who come here, educate here, fall in love with the province, get jobs with us, stay here, and grow the economics in this province. It's amazing. Good Local, we started up with me in the back of my restaurant and my partner, and now we have 7 full-time software programmers in 9 months. Amazing. Speaking of connectivity, the talent is amazing. They're all hired here locally, working here in Winnipeg. But the connectivity was to scale from me in the back of my restaurants packaging orders for local businesses to literally calling Dana saying, Dana, I got this great idea, I need help, how can we do it? Dana contacting the Premier and the Minister saying, we need to get in touch with this and the Chamber, and within 3 weeks we had $500,000. And the return on investment is already $1 million back into the hands of businesses. So it's just everyone in Winnipeg, it's not just us because we're successful entrepreneurs and business leaders, it's anybody in the city. Like, we're so accessible here in Winnipeg, you could walk down the street to people like, hey, Abby, I need this. Great, let me make a call. Yeah, and we all want to help each other. I mean, our license plate says friendly Manitoba for a reason. Yeah. I mean, I'm from Ottawa. I went to school in Vancouver. I could have lived in Toronto, and I with my CFL career, I was everywhere. I chose Winnipeg on purpose because I love this city.
And I think now the challenge for us is to make sure that connectivity of the business community translates to the student experience, right? How do we make sure that everybody has work integrated learning experiences? How do we make sure that the kids that are going to Sisler know about Price Industries or know about Payworks or know they can go make video games here and don't have to go to Vancouver or Toronto or some of the, the usual picks. And we're working on that. I think we're making great strides, and we'll see how far we can get.
Just ask a question about, and this may be a hard one because it requires you to go back in time a little bit, but one of the things that we do at ICF, probably the most important thing we do, is help places get started. Places that don't have what seem to be these natural, amazing advantages of yours, and you're not unlike Columbus, Ohio, another city where it's a medium-sized city and it's really easy to get 25 business leaders into a room when you need them. But how? If a city doesn't have that friendliness, that boy, everybody's in touch with each other, how do you get it started and keep it going? Again, this is the talent pipeline. Everybody knows we're supposed to have a talent pipeline. Everybody can give you the words that you've said, but how do you actually get that talent pipeline started and keep it going over the long haul? Because it takes tremendous consistency to make this kind of thing work. Any thoughts about that from Winnipeg's experience?
I'm involved in a task force right now that is making recommendations along with Economic Development Winnipeg to the province around that pipeline and how do we continue to develop it, and how does it change, and what does it look like in the years to come. And I think one of the things that we talked about very early on is that government will always have a desire to want to talk to post-secondaries about that pipeline, and there's often a disconnect. They sometimes don't even speak the same language about what the opportunities are. But we found putting the employers and the students front and center in the conversation really did accelerate the development of that. Students want it, employers understand it, and we can bring government and post-secondary along the journey. So I think that purpose of employer and student needs to rise to the top of the discussion rather than a delivery vehicle that's thought of as almost an afterthought.
Well, and it sounds like, in other words, rather than getting two policy groups together to talk about policy, you get some people who want something, get something done, and give them and empower them.
I can add to that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
I can add to that. So, I mean, as an entrepreneur who started from the ground up with I went from the football field to opening one restaurant, to opening two, to opening three, and now we're at where we're at. I think if you were to start off, it's a couple things. One is, yes, we're friendly, everyone's accessible, the connectivity is great. The chamber here in Winnipeg is unlike any chamber I've ever seen. The Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce and the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce have been essential in this, my success, networking, meeting, and just having that. So starting the business community together in a chamber was vital. And then also these really awesome things we have, like the incubators, like North Forge. Like, I don't know if we've talked about that at all, but that is an amazing, amazing thing that we have here in Winnipeg, and is one of our stars and showcased all across Canada. And kids, and I'm sending kids to that thing constantly, and they're learning and they're growing, and they have that mentorship, and they have that. And that started off 10 years ago when I was first opening restaurants. It's like nothing. It was just a couple people in the back, and then it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And now there's other incubators like that here in Winnipeg. And I think it just starts organically, and then you get a couple leaders to support it, and then you get the chamber involved, and it just grows and grows organically. And we're at where we're at right now. We're one of the top 7 cities here, and we're going to win this year. So yeah, it's awesome.
Good attitude. Dana, tell us just a little briefly about North Forge for people who are not familiar with it.
Well, North Forge is an incubator, and it's one of those places where we can bring, people with great ideas and help them learn to commercialize, right? We've got people that know, a whole lot about what they're building and how to build it, but they may not have experience in how to get it up and running, how to commercialize it. They may not have HR experience or, financial experience, and this North Forge group will wrap around those people and help them get to that next level. And I think it's a really important part for any community to give them opportunities to commercialize their ideas and their inventions, but also to bring the skills to them that they may not have naturally. And as a community, we need to wrap those people up and give them all of those opportunities to be successful. I laugh because you talk about all the things that you did out of the back of your store, out of the back of your basement or whatever, and I think of the Bold Commerce story. And I think you met some bold people yesterday who are one of the the biggest organizations that do the platform for Shopify and others. But that story started with 2 guys in a garage doing trying to figure out how to take their wives on vacation and trying to make a little extra money. And here we are, a few years later, and they're shooting the lights out. So all that stuff happens, and we need to make sure that people have the opportunity to succeed. I mean, Skip the Dishes, similar story. These guys had a great idea, built a platform to deliver food, and were paying salaries off credit cards because they didn't know how to take it to the next level. And thankfully, there were enough supports for them to be able to get to that next level, and we hope to make sure those exist for everybody.
I was one of the first restaurants on Skip the Dishes when Josh Samarkey walked down the street. He walked down the street from on McDermott, 2 blocks away, and said, "Hey, Abby, you want to join Skip the Dishes?" I said, "I don't want to do any more dishes." He said, "Oh, you can just skip the dishes." So we were one of the first restaurants, and now look at that success. But that is the specialty of Winnipeg, and I really think that can be replicated in other cities that are like us. By using what we've done here.
Dana, correct me, North Forge is the specific original focus of it, I don't know where it's expanded, was about students. So it came out of university. It was about equipping our students, sort of to go on to the next level, which I always admired because students have got a great deal of knowledge, but it's mostly theoretical. What they need is help applying it. So am I right about that? Because it's a specific aspect of it that I thought was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it goes back to allowing people to be creative and allowing people to be successful in what they know, right? And so we have students that have great ideas and they have some knowledge, but how do you take that to the next level? And that's what North Forge was initially put in place to do.
Okay, excellent. Listen, I want to thank you all very much for coming and giving the rest of the world a bit of a flavor of what makes Winnipeg unique and has helped to move you into our top 7 intelligent communities. So I look forward to the outcome of our award competition this year and to seeing you all again in person as soon as I can get up there.
So that was our 2021 Intelligent Community of the Year Winnipeg. You'll be hearing from our new Intelligent Community of the Year Durham. There are some posts up there now that you can go to, and we encourage you to hear their story as well. In the meantime, remember, continue to listen to our podcast and our new podcast, The Intelligence Test. And in the meantime, we will see you next time in Curitiba, Brazil in March for our Smart 21 announcement. If you'd like, feel free to submit a nomination for your city. You have until January 31st. Take care, everybody.